做咩哥哥？嚇？咩事啊？有冇放安全帶嚟？睇個防，please。睇防安全帶。
right-wing competition law with an open-loaded and unworkable international football calendar. And yet tonight, the trainer of three-time Cheltenham broadcasting the best mates who came out of retirement last year, returned to training at the age of 76 as Aston first call success. Cotswold Cottage and New Zealand now have a 4-0 lead over Great Britain in Sailing's America's Cup, which is a best of 13 series. If you ever wanted to challenge for the time morning, New Zealand now need 3 more wins to win in Barcelona. Thank you very much, Kathy, and now for what is coming up at 9. Hi, I'm Kirsty Young, and I'm happy to tell you that Young Again, my podcast for BBC Radio 4, is back. Today, I'm in conversation with a world-renowned physician who firmly believes that
무도 채우고
is inextricably linked
직업
to our
보도를
past
해준다.
experiences.
So, what do I experience? I experience that the world is a dangerous place. And that's downloaded into my nervous system throughout the first year of my life. And then I experience abandonment.
In this edition of Young Again, I'm in conversation with Gabon. Join me this morning at 9 on Radio 4 and BBC Sound. What's back, Kirsty? Quick look at the weather today. Cloudy for most of the 12.3 times. Rain arriving in the west later in the day. Today on BBC Radio 4 highlight. The United Nations has defied calls from Israel to withdraw its peacekeepers from southern Lebanon. Several UN troops have been injured recently during the Israeli military's offensive against Hezbollah. Israel has said its retaliation against Iran will ultimately be based on its own national interests, but it will consider America's input. Tehran launched a missile strike on Israel 2 weeks ago. The former Prime Minister Lord Cameron has told this programme that the government should consider sanctions against extremist Israeli ministers, who he said were encouraging violence against Palestinians. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has suggested that weight loss injections could be used to ease pressure on the NHS and get unemployed people back into work. Writing the Daily Telegraph, Mr Streeting said the jabs could be life-changing for people. A BBC investigation has found that incinerating household waste in the UK creates as much pollution as burning coal. Almost half of all household waste now goes into industrial incinerators to generate electricity. A rise in the amount of plastics being thrown away has driven an increase in emissions. Caroline, thank you very much. It is just after 8:30. In David Cameron's interview with us this morning, he said that while he would not have restricted some arms sales to Israel as the current government has done, over concerns about Gaza, he was, as Foreign Secretary, considering other action on parts of the Israeli government.
Before I left office, I was working up sanctions on these two ministers, Minister Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who, when you look at what they say, they have said things like encouraging people to stop aid convoys getting into Gaza. They've encouraged extreme sectors in the West Bank with the appalling things they've been carrying out. And so actually saying to Netanyahu, yes, we support your right to self-defense. No, we're not going to end the sale of arms. But actually, when ministers in your government who are extremists and behaving this way, we're prepared to use our sanctions regime to say this simply isn't good enough and has to stop.
And it didn't happen, Lord Cameron told us, because then the general election was called. Now, the two ministers concerned, Rivermel Kotlet and Itamar Ben-Gvir, are both still serving in the Israeli government. The BBC's approach to both for comment. Jeremy Byrne, our international editor, joins us. For those who are unfamiliar with these two and why Lord Cameron calls them extremist, Jeremy, can you explain?
Well, they are extremists. So not Ben-Gvir is the national security minister, so he's in charge of the police. He was given many lawsuits against him, but in 2007 he was convicted of incitement to racism and supporting a terrorist organization. He was a supporter of a banned organization here, which was formed by an extremist rabbi. So he was going to put carrying signs that read, expel the Arab enemy, Rabbi Kahana, that was the man who followed who bribed the Arab members of parliament, Arab more than 20% of the population of Israel are Palestinians, and he clearly sees them as guilty men, and professional smoker, he's a massive supporter of resettlement in Gaza, among other things, by Jews. There were Jewish settlers, quite big ones, in Gaza until 2005 when they were pulled out by then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon suddenly resettled in the first part of some massive development. So he sees a huge opportunity now to get Jews back into Gaza. these two men are significant because while they were very much fringe characters, the last election, Netanyahu persuaded them to get together, so they had enough votes between them to get over they had 57 dozen votes in Israel to call them represent. So together they did, and therefore that helped them get into majority. So they're in the cabinet, they've got very good jobs. Smotrich is the finance minister, plus he has a lot of responsibility for what happens in the occupied territories. So between them, they essentially hold his fate in their hands because they've said repeatedly that if he does things that they don't like having a ceasefire with Hamas, then they will bring down the government. So they are very influential figures in Israel, and while centrist Israelis don't really like them very much, they're very important politically.
Jeremy, stay with us. I'm going to bring in Tom Keating, who's the Director of the Centre for Finance and Security at the military and security think tank RUSI. Tom Keating, this is not a new idea in the sense that it has been proposed by the EU's top diplomat. There were reports at one point that the White House had discussed it too. But how big a move would it be for a British government?
Well, the UK has, since Brexit, tried to find ways of demonstrating independence with its sanctions policy, so this clearly would be a significant move. There is a global human rights regime, which I think probably is the regime that Lord Cameron would have been looking at. But, I think it would clearly be a major political message that the new government would be sending. That's, after all, what sanctions are, generally political messages.
But as individuals, other individuals,
The problem is abolishing it has also involved taking money away from some people who are still on very low income back to measured poverty. So it's only really been half a week, and the government still needs to do much more to figure out how in the future, when we get energy price shocks, we target the support that is available on those people who really need it.
David Laws speaking to me earlier. Now let's turn to Henry Zepplin, because in the last few minutes he has been interviewing the Prime Minister. Henry, what came up? Did you talk about the national insurance employer contribution going up?
It would seem that I may spend, crucially, the Prime Minister gave his view on the dispute that I was talking about with Nick at 6:30, which is what precisely did the Labour manifesto before the general election say about national insurance? Some people say that the manifesto gave the impression that a Labour government would not increase national insurance at all, either the employer rate or the employee rate. Keir Starmer has for the first time indicated that he agrees with Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who was speaking about this yesterday, and Jonathan Reynolds, the Business Secretary, who was speaking about this on Sunday, that the only commitment Labour Party made before the election was not to increase the employee rate of national insurance. I say it's as good as confirmation you will ever get in the run-up to a budget that this government is going to increase that employer rate of national insurance.
That sense of does it break the promise is one aspect of this. Another is the impact that it is going to have on employers. We did talk to the CPI about this earlier, who made clear that it is going to be difficult for employers, or at least some employers.
Exactly, and arguably it sits in tension with what the Prime Minister was saying yesterday, and what he was spending most of this interview I did with him talking about, which was about how this government wants to encourage business investment, wants to make the country a better environment in which businesses operate. Now he would argue there's no tension there, that businesses accept that the UK is in an economic predicament that some taxes will have to go up, but that is the fine balance that this government is really going to have to strike. Finding a way to make the UK an attractive destination for business investment, which they hope will promote growth, dealing with what they say is a £22 billion black hole that they have to fill.
First, there is Ukraine continues to be under Russian drone attack almost every day. The network of volunteer patrols become an integral part of the effort to protect the country and to patrol the skies. With most men of fighting age called up to serve, it's an effort that is increasingly involving women. As our correspondent Sarah Rainsford found out when she joined one patrol who call themselves Witches of Ukraine.
When Russian drones swarm over Kyiv, the sound is unmistakable and it's nerve-wracking. Then, usually, comes the boom of Ukraine's air defences. The number of drones is increasing. So, one night, we went on patrol with a team of were held from the airport to protect the skies in the Bucha region, just outside the capital.
There is a total of 25 drones at the moment over Ukraine. The mobile air defense team have just stopped their car ahead of us about 200 meters. We just got out, we're walking through the middle of a pitch black field up a dirt track towards them where they're positioned.
The unit call themselves the Witches of Bucha, because with one exception, they're women, stepping up now that so many men have been deployed to the front lines. Ukraine is short of weapons too. The machine guns that the Witches are assembling were made in 1939. They have to pour in bottled water and cool them.
Also, Valentina said that the drones could see the light of the control. They don't have the drones that are going to behave. So they're saying they need to continue to work in the dark, essentially.
Of course, it's nerve-wracking because we need to be focused to react to the slightest sound. Valentina is a vet. The commander, Julia, has a day job as a manicurist. Her team has downed 3 drones so far. She says there are more in the air these days. And when I ask why, she shrugs. I think they want to kill us. The women joke a lot here, but they're all from Bucha, and at the start of the all-out invasion, they lived under occupation when Russian forces killed and brutalized civilians here. Valentina tells me that experience is what's driving her now.
I remember all the horror. I remember the screams of my own child. I remember the dead people when we were fleeing. That's where I find the strength to go on. It's what motivates all the women.
So much that the Bucha Witches spend their weekends doing more military training. This is them learning to storm a building, cruising through the ruins of an old farmhouse. There's a fair bit of back chat, and their gun skills are not entirely convincing yet, but they're really learning fast, and they call this empowering. Anya is an office manager who tells me how she felt totally useless during the occupation, unable to defend her family, and that was terrifying. And this is Ina. She's a maths teacher.
Ukraine suffered, but the people who are no longer here. That was taken by the Second War. Then they were put together here. And I tried it and didn't fall apart.
Back at base camp, Valentina stokes the fire in a hut as rain hammers down on the roof. She's on patrol duty, waiting for the next air raid. She tells me the men who used to defend the skies here are now across in the east, where the fighting against Russia is fiercest. So we try to smile and stay cheerful, she says. But we're just waiting for them to come back alive.
inspired you to look at that to get involved in it?
One of their last I looked at my hands and was invited by the school research in schools, which took me on the state schools and that was a school in the prisons. And eventually I went to 107, all 117 prisons. And when I was going around that, I was thinking, what is 400 prisons? Nothing.
It's not just playing, they are learning a skill then.
They're actually learning a skill that can affect some of design, level coaching, defenders, technicals, proper line coaching, sets them in the path.
And Dr. Newsom, when you studied this, what did you find?
The big finding in that's come out this week is that behaviour increases substantially. So you have a 50% drop in notifications as adherence for offences against family in prison. You have a 50% in prison participants compared to a drop, and that was controlling almost automatic past behaviour aimed at mysterious ones. We've seen that disintervention is the difference in behaviour change.
This intervention is different from any other intervention. What you doing because you haven't got the programs, they're just asking staff to do any implementation.
Well, what we found is that the key to these behaviour changes is social bonding, creating a sense of connection, a sense of habituating the participants as the driver of the behaviour change, and to paraphrase that whole environment for staff to change as well. Now, this concept of behaviour is a weighting method to take out appears that influencing staff. And that social bonding is powerful for this family of kids.
David, if you're all friends, colleagues in the football family, says, hold on, this is very the average from the opportunities that perhaps kids who are around their CP day. But it's a fascinating project. Thanks for talking to us about it. While we've got you, David, as I said, you are often credited with creating the Premier. Do you worry that it is now facing something of a civil war? There's major legal cases around the way football has responded. Manchester City facing charges about some people sort of suspect sponsorship. Was your old club Arsenal now facing charges that it has taken interest from loans? Do you worry about the future?
Yes, indeed. Financial fair play is within the next problem. See what's going on. The clubs are arguing amongst themselves. There's litigation going on between the league and the clubs, between the clubs and the clubs. And now you've got the regulator coming in. The regulator needs to be brought in sooner rather than later now, in my opinion, because it does need sorting out by an independent authority. I think that's where it's at. And it's very wrong, and frankly, I think the financial fair play situation is causing a nightmare. And if we were to start fresh, I would scrap it altogether, because we just need harmony. We need to restore harmony within the clubs.
When you say worrying, is it worrying enough for you to think that the Premiership of the Premiership, in other words, the idea that the Premier League is the key league around the world, could be threatened if this is got wrong?
Absolutely. You've got to always encourage investment, and you've got to make sure you've got countries for masters training. You don't want anybody else trying to slow us down.
What, spell out the threat, what could go wrong if this is not positive
Well,
result?
you've got major investors deciding instead of investing in Premier League clubs, they decide to invest in La Liga or in the French League. It's important that we keep our number one spot, which we are well ahead of the other European leagues. And that's what we need to do.
Keir Starmer is a season Arsenal. And we have many conversations, usually about Manchester United and Arsenal with him. I know he's a serious football fan. There are people who think the whole idea of the football regulator, initiated by the Conservatives, of course, they were adopted by Minister, is going to do great damage to the Premier League. Do you know because it was brought in with super? Thank you for talking to us about your twinning project with Dr. Martin Newton.
That's it from us. Our editors Will Cooper and Jack Evans. The studio director was Shona O'Donoghue. After the news. BBC News at 9 o'clock. The United Nations has defied calls from Israel to withdraw its peacekeepers from southern Lebanon. Several UN troops have been injured in recent weeks as Israel continues its military offensive against Hezbollah. Here, former Prime Minister David Cameron has said the government should consider sanctions against two Israeli government ministers. The so-called Hezbollah secretary called for an election. He's been examining plans for action against two hardline members of Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet who are accused of encouraging violence against Palestinians. The government is looking at whether weight loss injections could get unemployment back into work. It's a multi-million-pound deal with pharmaceutical firms to fund a trial of whether new treatments can help. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says the idea would also benefit the NHS.
This drug will be very helpful for people who want to lose weight, need to lose weight. Very important for the economy, so people can get back into work. Very important for the NHS, because as we've said time and again, yes, we need more money for our NHS. We've got to reduce the pressure on the NHS.
There's been a slight fall in unemployment. The jobless rate fell to 4% in the 3 months to August, down from 4.1. The figures from the Office for National Statistics also show that pay grew at its slowest rate for more than 2 years over the same period, raising expectations of a cut in interest rates next month. And the BBC investigation has found that the practice of incinerating much of the UK's household rubbish is as polluting as burning coal. Almost half of all household waste now goes into industrial incinerators to generate electricity. Recycling rates have stagnated. The government says it's considering the future role of incineration. A Labour MP is bringing forward a private member's bill to seek stricter controls on smartphones for teenagers. The Minister says children need stronger protections in place up to the age of 16, including more restrictions on apps and a ban on phones in schools. BBC News.
This is Radio 4, where today we'll take in the broad sweep of what it is to live on planet Earth. In half an hour, why analysis of your genetic code could be crucial. Great Leslie Manville is on Woman's Hour at 10. Also talking about Saturday Night Live. Screenshot is in a couple of hours' time. Muscletoe actor and art lover has been exploring surrealism on Tuesday afternoons. Miss Winfrey asks, are we all surrealists now in an increasingly outlandish world? That's 4 o'clock. First, a renowned and sometimes controversial trauma expert, Rustam Islam.
Hello, I'm Kirsty Young. Welcome to Young Again, the podcast that asks fascinating people what advice would you give your younger self. Today, I'm in conversation with a world-renowned physician who firmly believes that our present health is inextricably linked to our past experiences. Trauma, he says, is not what happens to you, but what happens inside you. Being born into a Jewish family in Nazi-occupied Hungary must surely then have been life. In this edition of Young Again, I'm in conversation with Gabor Mate. Welcome, Gabor, and first of all, thank you for this particular position. Your new species. It's called The Myth of Normal. I usually make notes, and I have never read a book where I have
been going to interview the author and need as many notes. I mean, it's almost comical. There was a point at which I got every page I'm turning down, every page I'm marking up.
Oh, wow.
And you specialise in trauma, in illness, and healing. For people who are not looking in healing, and who already got this book, who've read some of the other books, what is it that you are trying to tell them?
Well, in brief, it's the recognition, not just philosophical recognition, but the actual scientific fact that everything is connected to everything else. And you can't separate individuals from their environment, you can't separate individuals from their multi-generational family history, from the culture that they grew up in, and you can't separate the mind from the body, contrary to the way medicine is practiced. And so that whatever happens to an individual, it's not just the manifestation of a certain organ, it's actually the manifestation of an entire life lived in a context as affected by multi-generational and cultural effects. In other words, it's all one.
I'm going to ask you much more about those approaches, but I want to sort of root myself and the people who are listening in your experience.
Yeah.
You say that each carry our wounds in our own way. So what were the greatest injuries that you carried with you from your early years that sort of affected your health?
So I was born in a situation where I'm not even sure my mother wanted to be pregnant. She was a Jewish woman, gets pregnant in 1943. The Second World War, anti-Semitism in the country. My father's away in forced labor. He has gone for a typical stress response to pregnancy. I might say I grew up with a jaundiced view of the world, you know. Then it's a difficult birth, and 2 months after I enter the world, the Nazis occupied Hungary, and the Holocaust begins in our country, and that the grandparents are died in Auschwitz. The same day that my grandparents died in Auschwitz, my mother's milk dried up. And then we have a year of persecution and literally life danger. Now the emotional state of the mother, already in pregnancy, and certainly in the first
Dynamo Kiev. Dynamo Moscow sort of way. That kind of all those Eastern European teams are factory teams, aren't they?
There's Locomotive Moscow.
Locomotive was made
Locomotive
locomotive.
factory.
Yeah, exactly. So
they originally worked for the ironworks.
yeah, Thames
In their
Ironworks.
lunch break.
Yeah, they played football. West Ham, other things that sort of general public will probably know, they play in claret and blue. They now play at the London Stadium, which they moved to from the Berlin ground, which is where we got to, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's how you got from Berlin
Yes.
to
Felt the
West Ham.
same way.
Yeah, the Berlin ground, West Ham United's old ground, was built supposedly on land which had been the size of a house used by, this is in Wikipedia, used by or owned or visited by Anne Boleyn.
Right.
So
It doesn't sound like they're that certain, really.
No,
Because you might have walked past
Now,
one.
this is my first great leap, right?
Okay.
So Anne Boleyn's sort of adversary was Cardinal Wolsey, because Cardinal Wolsey was meant to get the annulment of the marriage between Henry VIII and Catherine Aragon.
Yeah.
So Henry VIII could marry Anne Boleyn, but he didn't manage to do it. Anyway, I then looked up Cardinal Wolsey. He didn't have a very happy end to his life. He lost all power and all that kind of stuff. But weird, one of the things he did was he is thought to have popularised strawberries and cream.
Oh.
Yeah, which he produced at a banquet in Hampton Court. And I wonder whether strawberries and cream could have been an early inspiration for strawberry yogurt. That's how desperate I was at this point.
Well, yeah, if you mix them up.
Yeah, but it turns out the strawberry yogurt was actually first introduced commercially in Prague in 1933. So whatever link there is between Cardinal Wolsey and strawberry yogurt would take us via the former Czechoslovakia and 400 years. You're looking very concerned.
Well, no, it's just because it's just occurred to me. You never hear about yogurt in this country or anywhere. I mean, yogurt always seems to. But you know, you never hear about yogurt. You never hear about yogurt historically. It always associated with cold countries, isn't it? It comes from Scandinavia or Switzerland.
No, originally it's sort of
Greece.
Yeah, Greece. The word.
Yeah, I never
I just realised
That's
that
a
it's
category
all complete nonsense.
Yeah, it's all over there. It's all Alexander the Great and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I abandoned that route. I leave it for you in case that works for you. I don't know. I discovered that West Ham as an area clearly has political representation. And in the late 19th century, the MP for West Ham was Keir Hardie, who was the first leader of parliamentary Labour Party, the great sort of father figure for the Labour movement, was he not?
Yeah.
And it is from Keir Hardie. Keir Starmer is named for Keir Hardie. His parents admired Keir Hardie. And so Keir Starmer, the first half of that is the name of yogurt. Skier.
Okay, we're not having that. We're not having that one.
Skier is an Icelandic yogurt. I mean, it seems a fairly clear link to me.
It is, but it's not clear enough now.
Okay. All right. So now we've got
Valiant attempt.
and
I really like that one. I feel like if we allowed that one, the whole rest of the series would collapse into complete chaos. And
It feels like if this is what you're beginning of a journey to Neptune, you could go that way, and then that's the bit where you drive for 5 minutes and just get a hot air balloon.
it seems like you seem like a beach if you had an outlet.
Yeah.
Let you get on.
Yeah. But no, I feel for the integrity of the program overall.
Yeah, we've got on that. Okay. So Bobby Moore, West Ham footballer, captain of the West Ham team.
Sir Bobby Moore.
Sir Bobby Moore. Sir Bobby, of course, is not Robin or
No. Or if it is, it didn't last very long.
So Bobby Moore, when he left West Ham towards the end of his career, he played for Fulham for a bit, and then he decided to go into management, thinking there would be lots of offers that he would be offered, as the World Cup winning captain of a great West Ham team, as we said, with Martin Peters and Jeff Hurst in it. Anyway, no management offers were forthcoming until a Danish business lured him back into the game, right? And he went to play for a team in Danish second or third tier, I'm not sure which it was, called Herning Bremer. He lasted 12 weeks. They lost everything. Because he was just Bobby Moore. Essentially, it was Bobby Moore and sort of 11 postmen.
Right, that was it, 11 Danish postmen.
11 Danish postmen.
Right. Which sounds like a song, doesn't it? 11 Danish postmen.
Wait, like the 12 days of Christmas.
11 Danish postmen. Yeah.
And anyway, so he left. But the other thing for which Herning in Denmark is known is an international food fair.
Yeah.
And in 2019, the gold medal winner at this food fair was coconut skier.
This one's better.
Yeah, it's got more to it.
Yeah.
But it's still not really enough. Okay. So in the 1950s, the UK National Dairy Council promoted yogurt and all milk products, sponsored the League Cup for a short period in the 1950s. And then the milk, I remember that was Liverpool versus Everton. What is now the Caravan was then the milk.
Yeah.
And in 1981, guess what happened? What's Ham United?
I went too early on it.
Then the runners up in 1981 and 1986. Okay, now, this one I think is the most convincing of the bears. West Ham United famously play in American shirts. Now, the reason they play in American shirts, according to the history of West Ham United, is because in 1899, when there was still a sprinter called William went to a fair in Birmingham, where he was challenged to a race by 4 Aston Villa players. They were allowed to beat 4-4. And then it turned out they didn't have enough money to pay them the wages. So instead, they paid them to Aston Villa. They just nicked their own ball, but they gave him a full set of Aston Villa, which he then gave his son, who played for Tango West, who smashed West Ham United. And that's why West Ham United played Claret and Blue. They were stolen Aston Villa shirts after a fair outside Birmingham. Right?
Yeah.
Which gets me to Aston Villa. And Aston Villa, their very shirt sketch
between 1993 and 1993, shirt sponsor of Active shirt provider of the West End West was Muller Yogurt.
Aha.
Over there, well, that, yeah, no, that does it.
Literally. Yogurt to Machiavelli.
My favourite still is skewer.
I just still can't get over it. It's like so often you find these things where for years and years you find the way it has to be good, it's so similar. I don't know why that, and it turns out it's exactly the same, and they just stick to the nice together.
The day after, before us and Little Grey stole the bit and gave it to West Ham team, that's been with them. But which is a different story.
They're to play in their best and best.
We've got the yogurt now.
We've got the other.
Yes.
That's huge.
I'm going to try it when I get home, actually. Especially in sugary yogurt, because the salt would really cut through. On toast, Ellis, my husband, spread Marmite completely to the edges of the toast. And it's just all, it's there, this uniform slab. And I hate that. I like it to be really random and kind of dolloped on, and the kids prefer the way I spread it. And maybe it's a similar thing with the fruit. No, I told them that, they didn't say anything, they agreed.
So I've always been pro Marmite, which I get from my father. But if you spread it unevenly, you do run the risk of a really heavy Marmite burst.
You do an eye-wateringly heavy burst.
Yeah.
You do.
But you do like that? Is that part of the thrill?
Absolutely.
Right.
Industrialisation of yogurt, 1919, big moment. Isaac Carrasco, who founded Danone, which he named after his son, and Danone means Little Daniel.
Oh, look at that.
Little Daniel between Big Daniel and the medium sized Daniel. And then when his dad died in 1949, in 1947, Little Daniel added jam. But the cost savings to yogurt, which is, and again, it's a big family.
Yeah, and also, what Bristol treat?
Absolutely.
Did you see Cardinal Wolsey?
What happened? Connected spiritually. Nostradamus does jam. I'm moving on to jam now.
Oh, okay.
I'm firmly on my roots.
Okay.
I've pulled onto the motorway now.
You can actually stand up for another 6 years.
That's what I thought. He sort of, he waited. He got a wait. He's had the idea to wait. So Nostradamus and Nostradamus so much created treaties on makeup and jam.
Makeup? As
Yeah,
in,
yeah, treaties on makeup and jam.
right. What do they Well, in 1947, a man shall add jam.
Yes. If Joan of Arc used to eat Prince jam for porridge,
Very nice. Is it fireproof?
yes, famously, just coat everything in Prince jam. It's, he added jam, and that brings us curd, but ultimately brought to 4th century AD Rome. And the first written recipe of jam is recorded in the first named cookbook, and it's called Dere Coquinari.
Yeah. Cooking things.
Which is the art of cooking, and it's attributed to Marcus Gavius Fiscius. And 170, this is a bit expensive actually, it does work. 173 miles north of Rome is Florence, where 10th century later also was born.
We've got steam jam, and we get some of
Yes,
We've gone from
and
Gavius jam to Fiscius, and then to France. That's very good.
Yeah.
We're there.
We are there. But there is a really quick route, which is that Matthew Valley said, men are so thoughtless, they'll opt for a diet that tastes good without realising there's a hidden poison in it, which I think arises the state of the processed food industry.
There you go. A learning point as well.
Yeah.
That was a well-known, well-beaten rule. Because you can rely on landmarks. All you need is a list of what you're going to encounter and more or less when, or maybe images of what the place looks like and your direction. And that's it. And then you sail, you go what you say in that direction, and eventually reach your destination. So in the ancient world, the lists, travelers' instructions, that was, they are text or verbal lists of stops and itineraries. And then suddenly, the very next we have amazing journeys across the ocean.
So we definitely stage where Europeans are willing to draw lines on the ocean and to recruit maps to cover immense space. What does it mean with discoveries and drawing these lines?
These navigators and users navigation to signpost their position as well as they can. And obviously by then they can measure their latitude quite well and they don't know how to calculate it. So it's relative features. But it's
你根本還學做乜嘢？
above the guide business is stated. And that in this ship navigator you're not
乜嘢？
sitting in the world in both your target, but then you're projecting yourself
Okay.
as if you were looking at it.
你今日同邊個坐？
And that is the word of the modern
Lady. Who's Lady?
Well, it's fair to say that
Is she a good person or a bad person? Huh? What? She's cool. Who's your favorite person?
Flag on and play and conquer, and so these tracks work a little bit like that. And in the 18th century, when the tracks become more and more accurate, and the sciences in the Danish are measured, so you encounter navigators who can get it up the first day, yeah, it's like a few miles north of this track in 1770. As if that track was there, this notion of discovery, and the fact that you left a trail over the territory, like you might travel like an animal who's marked it, and therefore you want to go to a land vertical space that no one has yet access from, and that's how you secure your personal glory. And historians and historians of science in particular are very skeptical and very unaware of discovery, because if you look at discovery in detailed well, you'll see that it's more cumulative, not a moment of genius with an individual.
as I understand it, the Europeans weren't actually the first to navigate all these oceanic spaces. The Chinese, I think, had already done so. Tell me a little bit about Admiral Ben Hur, his map, and how it differs from the European.
from the idea of laziness lessons, and I'll explain. Possibly the most vivid one is a map that is a 17th century one that was actually reflective of the journey that took place in the early 15th century. There were 7 enormous expeditions that were organized in and led by this Adi Shapur. And these expeditions cut across the whole of the now, what I think is
細 B B 點啊，哥哥？細 B B 佢點嚟㗎？Please 咩？聽唔到？
Maps are approximations of reality. They are extremely accurate. But when we move from London type to danger reality, I think that's where danger lies in the sense that these are not selected.
我爸爸入咗油先啊！爸爸要入咗油先。爸爸用電話嗰時。
And the interesting thing with these journey lines and ship track stations is that they're not claiming to be objective. That line isn't anywhere. You can't see it on the water. And this is there. It goes really well.
咁你要買嗰啲一條條嘅 yogurt。你翻學嗰陣時食唔食嗰啲一條條 yogurt 㗎？一條條嗰啲 yogurt 啊，你使唔使㗎？嚇？你唔要啦？你要 Sainsbury's 嗰隻啊 ，Fruits 嗰隻啊 ？OK。
But it's still a line made of experience. It exists in time rather than space. And so it's a device for we use to try and have control over who we are and what we do and what we leave behind. But it's so fragile, isn't it?
If
you'd like to comment on anything in today's programme, you'll find me at bbc.co.uk. Now, growing up in Liverpool in the 1950s meant that one was always very much aware of the suit. The jokes about the Liverpool docker called Diesel, who nicked stuff from the cargo ships, and the cry of Diesel goes to the Ma, and Diesel goes to the Pa. And ferries across the river to Cheetham and Birkenhead. And there are always great exciting stories from one's mates who joined the Merchant Navy and brought back stories of jazz clubs in New York. But until now, I've never known what life was like on board, how that life has changed over time. Never known about what you might call the psychological impact of the life spent at sea. But all that influence has been finally remedied by a new book entitled Sea Time, an ethnographic adventure. And I'm now joined by its author, Ms. Helen Sampson, Professor in the School of Social Sciences at Cardiff University. Helen, this latest book of yours is built on, I think, 25 years of research in the merchant cargo shipping sector. In 2014, you were the winner of the BBC CSA Ethnography Prize for an early study on international seafarers. Now, tell me a little bit about the scope of this new research. What did you set out to achieve?
I came to realise that I had seafarers, they're very talented actually in letting things pass them by, irritating people or irritating habits or opinions that are offensive. You're obviously physically impacted by things such as noise and motion. Our ships are very noisy environments, so experiences background noise. It's very hard to get any sort of sense of peace really, and obviously they move and vibrate all the time.
Not much has changed. In fact, it might even got worse, I think it is.
That's disappointingly true, I'm afraid, yes. And seafarers also recognise this, they talk about it, they've worked at sea for some time. They know the steel that's used on ships is thinner these days, the ships vibrate more, furnaces are cool.
Okay.
That's somebody like the photographer Man Ray, who was part of this exhibition. Writer and translator Mark Polizzotti, but who also made a living by doing fashion pieces for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and places like that. So he actually helped act as a bridge between surrealism and that aesthetic and the mainstream by further aestheticizing it and making it safer for mainstream culture. Surrealist images showed up in photography, film, and fashion in the 1930s and 40s. Elsa Schiaparelli famously collaborated with Salvador Dali. Here's art writer Louisa.
The shoe hat, the lobster dress, the gloves with fingernails and claws, these great works, they were so fanciful and fun and beautiful, and I think surrealism was very open to that. The Bretons, while we didn't find communist and revolutionary, were not very happy about the whole kind of stuff, the combination of every Dali, but I think there was breadth in the movement to accommodate all different aspects of life.
Dali's commercialism was at odds with André Breton's political sensibilities.
Dali didn't help by doing endless advertising campaigns and kind of, satirising himself. I mean, Breton called him Aviva Dollars, anagram of his name, not for nothing. I mean, he liked to make it pretty.
You were having a trouble with night time, you have to take it or anything like that, or does it stand up at night?
No, the light, could you have the light?
This is the artist Salvador Dali, who we interviewed about his trademark pointy moustache in 1955.
In the night it puts down by your fingers, and then in the morning up she goes. Everything comes here in 3 minutes, and then you feel you can face the world with that sun from the start standing up.
哥哥，你要唔要自己喺架車度啊？ 你要啊？
When I started making a work with my moustache, I think
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a stronger symbol that we should pay attention to in our times now, especially with the rise of fake technologies, and with Dora's question, are the images that we're being exposed to online, are they real or are they not? The world seems to me to be becoming a kind of surrealist fantasia in which things are in super high definition, pin sharp images, and yet we don't question them. We feel that the images themselves are sensitive, despite being hyper, hyper real.
If we are living in a surreal sensation, where we can't trust what we see, where we are fed the daily diet of distorted and disjointed images at the touch of the screen, perhaps we need Serenity now, more than ever. To help us make sense of our increasingly surreal world.
Yeah, what I see an entire generation moving towards surreality as media and expression. I'm like, of course people are. It's like how beautiful and terribly tragic that we have to find control over meaninglessness.
哥哥睇下後面嗰架車，
To live in a way that is devoid of
哥哥，你睇下後面嗰架車。
The surrealists have kind of nailed it. Dreams, the unconscious, subversion, comedy. Surrealism is as relevant today as it was then. So surrealism is a dying today.
I'm Russell Toby. The producers are Melissa Fitzgerald and Ellie Andre. With reading by Adrian Holder and sound design by Tony Pearson. Surrealism Remix is a Blink Audio production for BBC Radio 4.
And if you catch up with the whole of Russell's series videos and remix on BBC Sounds. When it hits the fan, discusses Kamala Harris's interview on the Harvard Daily podcast. It sees the power of beating up. Plus, here's the PR behind football's latest civil war and unvarnished job updates.
I'm Claudia Hammond, and I'd love to know, is there a person or group who has made a real difference to your mental health? You can nominate them now for the All Your Mind Awards. For Josephine, winning in 2023 makes me feel stronger. The awards have given me a kind of extra superpower. It's a special recognition of a difficult task. To enter at full terms, visit bbc.co.uk/radio4/All in the Mind. You have until 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the 8th of January 2025 to enter. Can't wait to read what you have to say.
On Ready 4, we take you into the often hidden but always influential world of crisis and reputation management.
Hello and welcome to When It Hits the Fan.
你方面翻咗嚟喎，
Podcast about the world of persuasion.
媽咪翻咗嚟
The
喎
world of PR, how the powerful seek to persuade you to win your vote, to win your money, to win your heart. How do they do it? Or maybe, why are they failing to do it? With me, David Yellen.
And me, Simon Lewis. In this episode